So hello everybody, thanks you for coming. Let me greet you on behalf of Georgia Project Management Association, which is part of International Project Management Association, the first organization working on project, program and portfolio issues in the world. And this is a very first lecture, very first such kind of meeting. We will have some more meetings next week. So, and let me introduce you Reinhard Wagner. He's a past president of International Project Management Association and head of the council in the International Project Management Association, the practitioner with more than 30 years in projects, programs, and portfolios. He's also a director in TIPA Consulting, German, quite huge consulting company. So thank you very much. And I'm giving floor to you, Reinhard, because we have only 40 minutes. And thank you very much again. And this lecture is recorded. Thanks.
Thank you, Nino, and welcome all. And I hope that you're all good. Staying at home, being healthy, and you see it's my home office, so I'm speaking also now from home because we were hit by something really unexpected. And what is important now is what is on this chart. So keep distance and stay at home. And I want to talk a bit about this, what is something unexpected, but also how to deal with unexpected events like this Corona disaster. And I'm from Germany, so Germany is one of the most affected countries right now. And as a managing director of a consulting company with about 200 people, we are also very much affected by this and need to see how do we deal with it personally, but also in the company and also with our clients. So it's a really strange time. But things like that happen, and they happen more often than we think. Right now, it's for all very important to stay healthy, stay at home, keep distance, as this picture really shows here. So what is it, what we are talking about? Some call it black swans, something that is very unlikely to happen. But if it happens, it's a real disaster. So I'm not sure whether you have seen black swans. Black swans in Europe, at least, are very seldom, very difficult to see. And if you are lucky to see one here in Europe, you see, okay, maybe that's a sign of luck, but also the opposite of it. And that's also in project management, that sometimes we need to deal with black swans, like the tsunami in Fukushima and all the effects that it had on our projects, on industry and our economies. But if you see, if you travel to Melbourne, Australia, black swans are pretty normal. They are over there. So for them, a white swan would be something strange. So it is also sometimes just a matter of perspective. Where are we? Are we aware of things? Are we used to certain perceptions? Do we see swans like black or white? So it's very interesting. It is a matter of perspective. And also coronavirus may be a black swan for some. But if you look into history, there were a lot quite of similar effects. I think the problem sometimes is that we are not aware of it, that we are not carefully watching what's going on. And another effect that is quite interesting to observe is what I would call it's the exponential growth or developments like growing in an exponential function. Here you see this nice cartoon. I love that. Because also in the beginning, in January, February, when we heard the first cases, for me it was, oh, there's something happening in China. Okay, but our life is going on. But then in February and early March, when it came closer and closer, we still said, okay, it will pass by, we will not be affected. Now if you see this big curve of exponential growth of this pandemic development, I think it's a real disaster. And it's very important at a very early stage of this function to intervene and do something, and also listening. So I think that is something very important. Now I let you see. Okay, there's some chat going on, but no question yet. So questions at the end, or if you have something urgent, please put it in the chat so I can see it. Now, I think we need to talk a bit more about this kind of exponential growth, and that we need to stop that exponential growth. And one matter is, etc., stay at home, keep distance. I think that's very important. We humans, we tend to be reacting on issues like this pandemic. But we sometimes are caught in our cognitive biases. And you can Google that, that's on Wikipedia, the cognitive biases. That's a very important pattern to understand much better. I give you one example. In the example of 9/11, I think about 3,000 people died, these terrible terror attacks in New York. But more people died as an effect of this. Now you could say, okay, there was some war or pollution or whatever. No, people saw every day those terrible pictures or movies of planes crashing into the towers and the Pentagon. So people were just afraid of flying. So they stopped flying on a plane and they just used their cars. So in the year, so 12 months after this event of 9/11, more people died than regular on the streets of the United States because of that kind of perception. If they would have flown by a plane, that did not happen. So it would not have been that worse. So it's very important to understand that we should not react emotional, that we do not overreact. And that's also what we can see right now. So on the right, the picture is overreaction. I don't understand what all these people need the toilet paper for. We here in our household, we certainly have some toilet paper. But some people, I think they have spare for toilet paper for the next years. So that's an emotional, that's a panic reaction, which is certainly wrong and causes more troubles and is not helpful because it's like a fever. Other people may respond to it in the same way. On the other hand, we have this ignorance, because what is now a bit hidden behind the scenes is our climate change, which is still there. But the pace of that development of climate change is much slower than this corona pattern. So if it's just a very slow pace, people would not react appropriately, and we may miss the tipping point. And this is why we need to balance much better the way we behave, the way we react on what is going on in such a crisis. So you understand that this is maybe sometimes caused by the biases or the reactions of people in such a case. So what can we do? So because this is quite obvious. I think one key learning from this experience is to go back what is systemic thinking. Systemic thinking means to see the big picture of developments, to not just focus on a very little spot of the development, because everything fits together. So if we see that something is happening in China, we need to understand, so Germany, automotive industry, we have subsidiaries in Wuhan. And a lady from Wuhan in early February was visiting the headquarters in Bavaria. And she attended a training and she was very happy, hugging people. And then she flew back to China. And in China, they discovered that she was infected, having the coronavirus. So, okay, you now can say that was bad luck. But we need to understand much better if something in Wuhan happens. So we need to be careful watching, okay, which impact does that have on our supply chain of people traveling, and how do we respond to that? And I think that's also a learning now that our world is so much connected. There are so many interrelations that we need to have an overview on that we think of what can be happening from the one place to the other. And that's the same thing in projects. This is why we highly recommend to have an environmental check before we go, context analysis and a stakeholder analysis to see all the interrelatedness in a project. We also need to learn more from the past because now it's quite obvious that many of these kind of pandemics happened in the past. So a bit more than 100 years, the Spanish flu made it across the world. And if you see these curves now, I think you will be reminded of all the curves that we see on TV right now. It's exactly the same connection here. And just two cities in the US, they had a very different response to that flu. One mayor in the north of the US just said, okay, it will go away. It's no problem. They had public events. And they were hit massively with a lot of casualties. And in the south, a mayor said of a city, no, we need to stop all events. We need to stay at home. So the impact was very less than in the north of the city. So it's very important to see that kind of development, to respond to that events in a reasonable way, and maybe have a look back into our history to see what did they do in the past, and try to adopt this kind of cases. And now Taiwan, for example, or Hong Kong and some other countries, they have learned their lessons from the first SARS pandemic. And they applied very quickly those lessons learned, and that helped them to stop this curve to build up in an exponential flow. So learning from past is, I think, also a key learning now in this pandemic. What is very important to me, not only to look into the back mirror, but also to look more forward into the future. And I grew up in the Black Forest, a very rural area with agriculture. We had a farm. So we were doing hay. And in the summer, I just looked up in the sky, saw the clouds and say, oh, tomorrow it will be raining. Some people ask me, how do you know? I say, these kind of cloud constellations that seems like rain in 12 or 18 hours. I did not know exactly when it will rain. It was a high probability. It was not exactly true all the time. But through these weak signals, through observations, and also trusting a personal intuitive feeling helps sometimes to really make the right decision. And very frankly, we have lost that ability. We'll need to bring back that ability more in our projects. If we hear rumors in our project team, that may be a weak signal of something is wrong in the team setting. If we hear in our supply base, they are not delivering on time, it may be a weak signal, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So it's not just looking back, learning from history, but also, again, building up the competence and ability to look forward, to anticipate what may come, to predict in a way scenarios that may happen. That is very, very important. And in my country, for example, the politicians, they were always looking into what is science saying, what are the experts saying, what is a measure in other countries, and then implemented that. I don't see that in some of the countries, like in the UK or the US. And I think that is important, that we also listen very carefully to what the experts are saying, what the signals are, and interpret and make our own decisions based on that. So that's, I think, very important. Something important as well in the systemic world. I need to see how can I move it forward. Okay, here we go. It is working more with interventions. An intervention in a system is more setting the frame, not acting in a very detailed and classical way of I prepare everything and then I put it into action and see how it works. No, intervention is more working from the outside in, but also giving space to the systems itself to develop and more respond in an adaptive way. Maybe that's a bit abstract, but if you look into the agile work of working, that's exactly what we use there in agile projects. Just set a framework, give space to the people, and have a very diverse team of people and build on collaboration of that team. I think that is what helps more than just plan everything in all the details. And that's what I believe is also very important, to build on the network. And what we see in my country, but also in Italy and other countries, that now where we are in crisis, a lot of people work together. Younger people support elderly with doing shopping. They're even singing together. Yesterday I saw something also in my small town here, that they were performing a symphony via virtual tools and thanking with that the people that are working in the groceries and the other areas. So that is very good. I believe we should have much more coming together, building on diversity, integrating all the people. I think that may help us much better than if there's just a strong leader which thinks he knows everything and pushes us in a corner. Okay, just checking the, okay, no questions yet. Now, I want to now talk a bit about what can we do during the time of crisis, because I'm not sure what your situation is. In my company, but also in the clients we support at the moment, I think they need to do certain things at the moment to manage this unexpected event. One, what we can do, and we are experts in that, is to check the portfolio, assess the portfolio, what is really necessary, what can really be supported, and that can mean that you need to stop projects or activities, that you may need to bring projects into a parking lot, because you may not have the resources at the moment to support it, or they are not supporting the cash flow, which is very critical at the moment. So a first step really is actually to look into the portfolio of activities and decide very quickly, ad hoc, what can be really done, what is necessary to do. Maybe you sort that as an ABC priority. So A are the things that need to go on, and certainly the activities to manage the crisis is an A priority, but maybe other things have a less priority. So new things, developments and so on may need to wait. I don't know how long they need to wait, but that's something that I will tackle later. I think, sure, business continuity is something that we need to support business continuity. So how can we, in the case of my company now, still do trainings? Because face-to-face training is not possible, but can we move all the face-to-face trainings now to a virtual setting? And one of our clients decided today to just do it virtually because people are at home, they have time, but it's a challenge. And now you need to be very flexible to do a full day or 2-day or 3-day training in the virtual world, but it's working. We have experience in that. We have a competence center that's just doing that. I'm starting a very big mega project next week, which is a construction project, and we are doing the whole setup now virtually. That's all possible, but we need to think flexible how to continue our business, because very frankly, if there's no business, how would we pay our hundreds of people now in our company? But certainly it's also a good time now to reconsider or realign your compass. So what is our strategy now? How do we survive? What is the purpose? What is our strategic objectives for the next month? I think now we all need to step back, maybe also from a distant point of view, maybe from a home office perspective. Right. We need to have a fresh look into our setup and think, do we need to change anything strategically? But it also concerns our organizational structure. Are we efficient enough? Are we well set? Do we do the right things? Are our processes good enough? Is our culture right? And for example, right now, a lot of people are working remote. Is that maybe the way of working in our future? To reduce traveling. So are we fit for the time after Corona? I think that's a very important thing that we need to reconsider now. Certainly, we could use the time that we have in the home office, train our own people. We could redesign or rethink our organization to be able to do a quick start after the Corona crisis. And certainly, we need to plan for the time after Corona, because there will be a moment, I don't know when this moment will be, but most likely in Germany, in June, July, the first activities in industry will start again. Maybe that sounds very pessimistic because we are now end of March, but I think definitely April will be a downtime. Maybe in May, very critical activities will start again. It will be a very staggered process of activities now ramping up again. And that means we also, for ourselves personally, but also with our companies, we need to think of this time X, how to get started. So what do we do first? What are the activities? What kind of resources do I need? And then prepare for that moment, so that if the moment comes, we can quickly restart and rebuild our economy. And in Germany, we have, from the labor market perspective, some instruments, so not to lay off people. So the government is very graciously supporting the companies. But anyway, whether you have this support or not, we need to come back into the business, and so we need to prepare for that. Talking about the time after Corona crisis, so get out of it, my experience, and I've experienced 4 of this kind of crisis. Back in the early 90s was the first one, and 11 years back in 2008 was the last one. It's always the same. People come to kind of a sleep, and then they sometimes miss the opportunities to ramp up very quickly. For this ramp up, you need resources. So you have certainly very tight resources. So So you need to manage the relaunch through these bottlenecks. So here the picture shows the bottleneck of this. And so identify your bottlenecks, what kind of resources, people, machines, or whatever you have as a bottleneck, or your clients' bottlenecks, and try to support your clients in managing this bottleneck. Sure, it is also important to manage the resources for that. So if you have an overview of availability of resources and detail all your project plans and activity plans, and match both sides, that may help you to overcome this bottleneck or widen the bottleneck, because I think that's also something to find new ways of working, maybe with new people, maybe with outsourcing or offshoring, whatever it is. I think that's also maybe a good opportunity getting out of this crisis to find a new way of working. And that may be digital, it may be agile, it may be with new people, trained people, whatever it is. But it is important also to use this momentum to come out of this crisis, to make the unexpected an opportunity. But it needs a systemic approach, it needs a systematic approach of managing that, so that at the end you are better off. It may take a while, but I'm very optimistic. And in my view, in the last crisis I have experienced in the last 20 or 30 years, there's always something new coming out of this crisis. The crisis time is always about 2 years. It's difficult, it's a very challenging time, but afterwards we're always better off. And I think so, see the crisis also as a chance, like the Chinese do, because not only yin and yang, they also have for crisis a sign that is opportunity and risk in the same time. Now, what do we do after the crisis? I think there will be more crises coming. Maybe more climate triggered crises, like floodings or environmental ones. And I have here the picture of Cape Town. And 2 months ago, I was in Cape Town talking about program management. And I learned that Cape Town developed a resilience strategy because they were hit by a drought. So the water was really disappearing, and their consumption was much too high. So they suffered, and they said we need to now act and respond. They set up a program to overcome that, and it helped. It worked with the people to not spend too much water, to reduce the water consumption. But they also elaborated ways of getting more water, groundwater, and other water in, so to help Cape Town basically to survive. So, I think that's a very important point. So now in this resilience strategy, you will find that online. Just Google it. It's a very interesting document. It's the first one I saw from a city. That they just had discussions on what are potential disasters in the future. And now in their whole portfolio of projects, they do preventive actions. And all their infrastructure plans, they always look into this resilience strategy. What does that mean for our infrastructure development, for the capability build-up, and so on. So in order to prepare for the future, for future crisis, and I think that's very important for us all in companies, in the country, in cities, wherever we are, to build the resilience. Resilience basically means that you are prepared, that you are prepared to cope with unexpected, with very devastating effects, whether it's climate, whether it's pollution, whether it's traffic, whatever it is, to be prepared. And we need to transform, and that's also for certain. We need to transform our organizations to be more flexible, more adaptable, more prepared for things that come. That means we need to train our people to deal with the unexpected. And training means to build more on their intuition, to be more attentive to these weak signals, to be more responsive. But that is not only the individuals, that's all in the projects to build in this awareness, to train our people, to coach people, to build up this kind of resilience, and especially the organizations around. Because in the past, my perception is that the organizations are more inward oriented. They are more self-oriented and not very attentive to what's going on around them in the markets, in the environment. And to deal with climate change, I think they need to be more attentive, more aware, and more prepared. So I think there's a lot to do. And this is what I wanted to tell you. I have now more time for your questions. But I'd like to summarize before we come to the question that something unexpected is maybe something that we could call unknown unknowns. But somehow we know there is something out there in this world that could hit us, and we should be more attentive to it. We should listen more to the weak signals. We should listen more to the past experience. But we also need to look forward and anticipating developments. Now we need to manage the crisis and respond to it. But also we need to prepare now for the time after the crisis. And I think it's also an opportunity in there to change to a better organization, change to a better world. And I think we can then look back and be proud that we used that as an opportunity. So I think that's from my side, and I hope if you have any questions or comments, please address that to me.
Thank you very much. Actually, Zoom removed, I don't know why, the time limit. So we have a bit, I guess, more than 40 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask. I guess there are no any questions.
Let's give them some time.
Okay. Okay, so there is no any questions. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Thanks for your time. And this video is recorded, and I will upload it on the special channel. Also, Magdalena told me that we also can share this the experience within the IPMA network. So thank you very much, dear Reinhard, once more, and wish you health, first of all, and then successful projects after Corona ends. And I hope that it will end quickly, maybe in May. It would be great. Okay. Thank you very much.
I wish you all the best, and I will send you the slides, you know, so that you can share them if you like to share them.
Yeah, it would be super, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.